Hello, and welcome to the 19th episode of the Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod. I am your host, Gary, and this is the podcast where I talk about my world of G.I. Joe, what's going on in my experiences with G.I. Joe, whether it's collecting, current events, or me cleaning up my mess in my basement, which I like to affectionately call my pit. This week, it's not actually too far from what I usually do for recording. I'm trying to catch up. I started falling behind in schedule, and I just happened to catch the COVID, and I got stuck at home, did a bunch of catch-up work in addition to what I could work from home, and here I am trying to get my podcast back on recording and publishing schedule. So this week, I do have a few things to share, and here we go. Starting off in news, currently 3D Joe's creator, owner, Carson Metaxas is having a Kickstarter for the omnibus of the Art of G.I. Joe, collecting the Art of G.I. Joe, and I backed it. It was a no-brainer. It launched just after I recorded my last episode. I listened to the Full Force podcast. Boom, there it was. And I says, why am I not kickstarting this? Boom, clicked it, supported it. Absolutely going to be well worth the money. If you had ever gotten a chance to look at his soft covers are amazing. I managed to get in on the last of that with the slipcase, and I truly enjoy it. It's a great resource to have. But what he's doing with this hardbound omnibus, by including file cards as well as the front card art, is just, c'est magnifique. It is exactly a great coffee table book. It would be a great to be on the bookshelf, and it's a hardbound, so it will sit on a bookcase even better than the soft covers do, even if you have the slipcase edition like I do. I felt it was worth it to re-support Carson, and I know he's going to do an amazing job. And if you listen to this while it's still out in the Kickstarter world, check it out. It is something that you will probably be interested in. It funded beyond well within the first day, and I wish him all the best in this project. He's doing some really great stuff for the Joe community. Even if it doesn't strike your fancy for whatever reason, you might want to think about it, because he's building 3D Joe's to be the new definitive resource now that yojo.com is no longer being maintained. We got to give love to the guys that are giving the love back. Moving on from that, I have some acquisitions. I made my first 3 purchases of the year. Now, to start, I wasn't buying things for a while. My wife changed jobs, and she's got her back on her feet, so things have loosened up a little bit. And I cruise Mercari now. I think right now the deals that can be had are there instead of eBay. eBay is great for when you want a pointed item. I started off, just with a general G.I. Joe search, and I spotted a lot, and it was the G.I. Joe Arctic Commandos and the G.I. Joe International Force from 1993. Both sets of mailways, loose, which is how I like it. And according to the description, they were both complete except for DJ in the Arctic Commandos missing his antenna. I made the guy an offer. I didn't want to. I thought he was asking a fair price, but I wanted to get a little bit off. I felt that being opened should command a slightly less price, and I threw an offer out there. And the offer sat for a few hours, so I started trolling eBay because he said they weren't complete. Well, DJ wasn't complete, and I'm scrolling through, and I'm just saying, what's out there? And I spotted the International Action Force set, bagged, sealed. And I'm looking at the price on that, and it was very competitive. especially with what I had already offered for the open sets. And I'm like, now it's like you got that idea in your head, and it says, you know what? It's a good price for the full set. The individual figures are going for, half as much as what this full set's going. So I pulled the trigger and I bought that. In the meantime, about a couple hours later, the guy gets back to me with a counter offer, which was still fair, and it was still where I wanted to be, and I just accepted that. So lo and behold, the first thing I get is the second thing that I bought. So I opened up the package. It's exactly as described, exactly as the pictures showed. And the seller and I both missed one thing, and that was in the International Action Force, Big Bear had the wrong weapon. Not a deal killer because I now have a sealed International Action Force. And also, Big Bear's weapon is that Black Dodger laser gun rifle, which is also, by the way, packaged with Arctic Commando Sub-Zero. So I put that with Sub-Zero. I gave the accessory pack Cobra Commander version 3 gun with Big Bear, and I just called it even Stevens at that point. And they're really cool photos. I posted some pictures when we got some snowfall from my quarantine room. It's just having some fun, and it's been great. And I enjoy them all. They're all super tight. They all look like they've only been displayed, never played with, and it's cool to have. I got my second Snow Serpent, and I'm cool. I'm super happy. Now, to follow up with that a little bit was DJ missing the earpiece. Now, DJ version 1 I got for a steal a year or two ago, complete with full card back, and I was just like, I just got to get DJ. Don't ask me why anybody ever says I want to have DJ, but I did. And now I have Arctic Commando DJ. He comes with a gold gun that's repurposed from 1991's Tracker, originally in orange. And while that's a really good gun, it probably would have made more sense because he could have gotten Dodger's Battle Force 2000 gun rather than this one, and that could have gone to Sub-Zero. But here's the other thing. He comes with his antenna, right? But there's still the 2 plugs for that weird shoulder to back of head hose. Why didn't he come with those? I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at DJs again online because this is the only reason why you look at DJs online. And I want to find the parts to make them 101% complete. Now, his antenna, right? Now, if you want to the cheapest way to get a DJ antenna right now is to buy a bagged DJ from the Arctic Commando set, which makes absolutely no sense. But it is, because the more exclusive DJ is actually cheaper than the regular issue DJ, complete. That is just odd. I thought about buying the bag DJ and breaking them open, but I've also thought about buying another full 1989 DJ and then just giving this 1993 DJ his accessories. And I don't know. It's funny, but it's not funny. But this is the things you go to as a collector because for the most part, DJ's a guy that is only going to be displayed and not played because he's just not really a go-to character for me unless I want to blow up some tankers and benzene and destroy him in the pulverizer as well. And that's pretty much, what I got to talk about those two. Budo's awesome in his wild colors, and Spirit's pretty cool. And Stalker is just changed enough from his version 2. They're all decent repaints. But DJ was the one that I just had a little more to say about. The third thing I bought for this year was I'm scrolling through Facebook, and a guy in one of the G.I. Joe groups is selling some carded Joes, and he was selling a Duke version 3 from 1992 for $40 mint on card. And I mentioned the price. I don't like to always mention pricing, but I felt that this one was worth it because this is a steal. And normally I have a rule, $25 and down for me for a complete figure is worth it. And it's also worth it, especially if it's one of those 90 figures and you can open them up. But Duke version 3 complete, even loose, is a $30-something, $35, $40 figure. And the problem with him complete is he has those brown plastic rifle, the brown plastic knife, and the brown plastic tripod for his phallic missile launcher that he sits on. Maybe, doing his little Dr. Strangelove thing. Now the card's a little wavy, card's a little dirty. I got to look into how I should clean a card. And this is one I'm going to leave on card because there's no stress marks. The one that I reviewed for Pina Comics on their YouTube channel is also mirrored now on the Chaplain Assistance Motorpod channel. The stress marks are showing on the knife now. And I haven't even taken it out of the hand. I popped it on once and that was it. But it's developing extra stress marks. So this plastic is, made of the same plastic as last week's G.I. Joe hammer. It's not unobtainium. I would call it almost disintegratium. It's just starts crumbling with age. This is one Duke I'm going to leave in the package. The O-ring can snap. I don't care. He's going to stay there just so I could be like, yep, there you go. This is the piece, if I want to go back and say, let's examine, accessories later on. That's the other thing. And then in the same token, I felt just to sweeten the pot for this guy to make sure that nobody else snuck in from me, I offered to buy his carded Sergeant Savage Dynamite for another $20, which some people might say was overpaying. But I do have a G.I. Joe Sergeant Savage airplane, I believe, in storage. I think I got the P-40 Warhawk in storage, but I don't have any figures. And to me, the Sergeant Savage line, I remember when it came out in 95. I remember being at the department stores in Connecticut, would be Caldors and Bradleys, and sometimes Kmart, but mostly Caldors and Bradleys. They were the closest things. They were closest to my house. And I remember looking at the Sergeant Savage line being like, this isn't G.I. Joe, because the size was wrong. It was like so close, but so far, and it wasn't G.I. Joe in size. And that's the Kenner thing. I really think the Kenner guys that came on board to Hasbro through the acquisition, I think those guys really wanted to self-sabotage Hasbro in some way by selling them an off-scale toy that would no longer be compatible with 13 years of toys behind it. I really think there's some devious motivations there. But anyway, back to that. I've seen Dynamite has that head that looks a little bit like Ramon from the LRRP team. I've seen people use the heads on kit bashes. So it's, again, when they designed these figures, they were just like so close to what the Real American Hero thing was doing just a year earlier. That really covers what I did the past week. Before I get into the review section, I would like to mention that for the first time in a long while, I actually did opening a box and building a vehicle on my YouTube channel. And it's been a long time since I did that. And the review this week is on the 1993 G.I. Joe Star Brigade Cobra Invader. But before I get into the review, if you want to check the link below in the description, that's the link to the video. And one cool thing is I reached out to Paul Loebscher of G.I. Joeberg, and he was gracious enough to lend me the use of one of the songs he's composed. So a hearty shout out and thank you to Paul for letting me do that. He's an awesome human being. Now, of the epic repaint of the Cobra Pogo, the Star Brigade Cobra Invader from 1993. The Cobra Invader is a recolored and slightly retooled from the Cobra Pogo from 1987. And it takes the ridiculousness of the 1987 Pogo, the year that really a real American hero shot to the moon with the Defiant and, just some crazy ideas. And this Invader is a good repaint. I wouldn't say perfect repaint, but I would say it's a very good repaint of what the Pogo could have been in different context. And that was taking the Pogo from an earthbound infantry support, chaos, bouncing ballistic battle ball, and making it a proper spaceship. And it also made me think about what was the original inspiration for the Pogo. And I think about the Apollo moonlanders. And the Apollo moonlanders, especially with what they used to launch from the moon, they used a device that looked similar to the Pogo. If you really think about it, the arms extended out, and then it launched from the surface, back into orbit where it met up, and then, the astronauts flew back to Earth. It gave me a little bit of new appreciation for that. Now the Invader makes sense in context. And one of the things that struck me too, that makes me think about this, is the Invader has, new decals, but one of the things on the decals says, it has the Cobra logo, and then underneath it says Moonstrike. So here you are with I wouldn't say a great vehicle yet, but I don't want to tip my hand too early, but it's a more applicable vehicle, and that's what actually makes, for me, excited. It was exciting for me to open this up. I bought it from a seller on Instagram, and I thought I got it for a song, unbuilt, and it was, like new. So I get it at home, and I, give the guy like, oh, thank you, see you later, have a great day. I opened it, I looked at it, everything looked good, right? Everything was off the trees. And I was like, okay, and I knew I was saving it for a build and review. I'm stuck home, let me do the build and review, record the video. Before the video, I take it out, and I notice that the clip on one of the canopy halves is broken. I'm like, found the little piece, and I'm like, okay, well, all right, everything's been jostling around in the box. All right, that happens. And that should have been my first sign. That should have been my first trouble sign that something was wrong, even though I had bought this a few months ago. I take it out, and I'm not going to spoil the video, but I build it in the video, and I discovered that another piece was broken, and that was one of the hoses that goes from the legs to the body of the Invader. And that immediately was the second clue that this thing was assembled at one point and then taken apart, broken down, thrown in the box, and sold at a tag sale. The other clue was the jet nozzles on the bottom of the body were already attached to the pivot, but everything else was taken apart. And then the last thing was the fact that the hose was broken where it goes into the one of the legs. Here I have this, and it's kind of a bummer, but I'll tell you what else I did. Aside from spending what I thought was a good deal on this thing, and now no longer being a good deal, I went on eBay originally mid-review, and I found a parts lot with the canopy. Hooray, I got the canopy, I'm going to fix the canopy. But then I had to go back on and find another parts lot because the parts lot I bought didn't have the hose. So I had to buy another parts lot to find the missing hose. So I would like to say I probably have spent more money on a Cobra Invader than any reasonable human being should have had to do in the first place. That is my Invader story of acquiring this and building this. Because when the parts come in, I still have to attach the hose, and I still have to disassemble the top to fix the canopy. because I tried gluing that little piece on and it wouldn't stick. Get back to the review. So you have the bronze colored lower section of the Invader with the gun, with the laser cannon, the turning pivot, and the two nozzles, and you have the bronze legs going around, and then you also have the bronze top of the cockpit, which snaps down over the canopy, which locks them in place. The bronze is a good choice of color because we know spacecraft gets gold-lined protection for when used in space, and it provides a thermal resistance and dust resistance as well. So the color is not out of place. The body itself, what I like to sometimes call the ice cream cone, is black, and then you're left with a translucent, mostly transparent green canopy with 4 green missiles and a green missile launcher which houses the 4th missile while the other 3 are mounted on each leg. Also, I forgot to mention the bronze antenna. You also have a green seat inside the cockpit. The stickers are few, but they're there. You have 4 Moonstrike stickers. You have 1 for the front and the back of the cockpit, and then you have 2 for the bottom sides of the body. You have 2 blast decals that goes on the left and right of the bottom of the body, and then you have 3 stickers, vectored pod unit, to go to the left of each of the legs. And then finally you have the rescue stickers which go on the canopy. And those aren't on my canopies yet because I'm waiting for my canopies to come in the mail. Like I said earlier, this makes sense from a space. It is fun. I think it's more fun because I think the context is better than the Pogo. I think the green is a little loud. Other than that, it's not offensive. If I was to take this apart and let's say swap parts with the original Pogo, I think the only things I would swap is the green hoses and the antenna. I would probably switch out to the gray antenna and switch to the gray hoses. I'm not going to get rid of the missile launcher because I think the green missile launcher, the spring-fired weapon, is a staple of 1993 G.I. Joe, and it belongs there. And again, it doesn't look completely out of place. It is small. It doesn't take up much shelf space. It is just a neat little thing. It's kitschy, and I don't know, pair it up with a Stellar Stiletto. I don't have too much Star Brigade stuff, so this is unique. It could play well with my Crusader or my Defiant, and well, it would be hopelessly outgunned by the Defiant, but it's just fun to have. The one thing that I picked up from G.I. Joeberg, they talked about having a swarm of Pogos attacking a Defiant on Earth. Well, how about having a swarm of invaders attacking a Defiant in space? You got some great opportunities with this. Sometimes you have to let your child, take hold of the toy rather than your adult sensibilities. Because an adult would be like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And you know what? And one thing I'm always going to say is I'm always going to try to look at the toy before I look at the sensibilities of something. Because G.I. Joe managed to do both, and sometimes it didn't both well, but sometimes on a specific toy it did one better than the other. That's pretty much it for the overall review of the Invader. Talked about some play patterns you can have with it, and now who do you have pilot the Invader? Well, obviously you need a Cobra Spaceman. So the one thing I tried in my video, I tried to put an Astro Viper in here. He doesn't fit with his helmet on. But an Astro Viper without his helmet does fit in. So that's a good choice. You have the box shows Cobra Commander from the Star Brigade line. I don't have him, so I don't know how he fits. What I do know and what I do have is Cobra Black Star from 1994 fits perfectly. He's got those green goggles, which match up great with that green canopy. He's got the black body with the silver vest and the orange arms. He is at home in my Invader, and he is smiling underneath that helmet, ready to patrol the moon or orbit the moon or do whatever. It is, for me right now, it's the match in the way he's going to stay and the way he's going to get displayed until further notice. So, on a scale from 0 to 5 pogos, quarter pogo being optional, I'm going to give this a 2.5. And I'm going to give this a 2.5 pogos out of 5 because not everybody wants wacky Star Brigade vehicles. So it doesn't fit into everybody's collection. The only people that are really going to want this are people that enjoy some of the kitschness of G.I. Joe and people that are completionists. Completionists aren't going to play with it. Completionists aren't going to have more than one of it. Completionists, they have their own priorities. Personally, I have this one. I have enough parts coming in. I can build a second one except for a canopy and a hose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my eyes open for some parts in the meantime to stroll through, and then build a second one instead of spending a lot more money creating my next one, because I know I have enough money tied up right now. So I'm going to be happy with my 2, and that's where I'm going to leave it. But I got to figure out another figure because I only have one Cobra Black Star. So I'm going to have to go on the hunt for another Cobra Star Brigade figure, and I don't know what it's going to be until I find it. Well, that concludes the review of the Invader. Don't forget to go look for me on YouTube, Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod, and the video build of the Invader is live on there right now. Now, this concludes the episode of the Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod, the strange but not estranged little brother of the PintOComics.com broadcasting family. You can find us on Anchor.fm, our host, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and other fine podcatchers like Good Pods, and also Facebook. I figured out how to do those this week. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my first 5-star review, Catholic Geek 92, for leaving that 5-star review. I know I'm 4 months late, essentially, but I just learned how to look up my reviews on there. So be like Catholic Geek 92 and subscribe, like, rate, or leave a hopefully 5-star review. Doing this really makes a difference and only helps to improve and grow this podcast. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Chaplain Joe Pod. On Facebook, just search for Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod, and I'm there. Or you can send an email to chaplainjoepod@gmail.com. Now, before I leave, just one final missile for the masses. Be decent to each other. See ya.